Hey, I'm Bill DeVille. I'm here with Michael Kiwanuka. Michael, so good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Yeah, it's been, let's see, there was a pandemic just about to start the last time I talked to you, and you did a Theft of the Dial.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I did.
I remember you came here and you DJ'd, and it was really a cool set.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a good time. I always do at the Current, to be honest. So, yeah, we didn't know what was around the corner, literally around the corner then, you know.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah, a lot's happened, but it's good to be back.
Have you done any DJing since then?
You know what? I think I've done one. There's a station a good station in England, similar to the Current. And I've done one, filling in for another DJ. But that's about it. I think I've done one. I'd love to do more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I thought you seemed like a perfectly natural, perfect natural DJ when you were up here. It was fantastic.
Thank you.
So you're on tour with Brittany Howard?
Yeah.
A co-headliner deal?
Yeah.
How do you figure out who's going to be playing last in situations like this? Do you rotate, or do you both play, equally long sets, or how does that work?
Actually, those two, we rotate around. We play essentially the same amount of time each night. And like Brittany's really such a nice person, really mellow. And I've supported her a couple of times when she was with the Alabama Shakes. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of the crew's the same. Really, really good people. So it's pretty mellow, and we just swap. But funnily enough, I do have a favorite slot, but I don't know. It's funny. The last slot is like everyone thinks that's like the best slot, but there's something about the slot before, even like
especially if it's on like a Sunday night.
Yeah. But even like at festivals and stuff, on any day, there's like a mood that I think fits my music the best, which is not like right at the end of the night. Sort of as the night's happening, and people have a different. They're like really awake and ready to like receive things. And the later you get, the like, you get tired, and there's a lot of music. But the tour's it's been a really nice bill. It's a really good match.
Yeah,
the gigs have been amazing. So it's a cool way to like come back to the US.
So is it difficult to be away from your wife and children? You have a couple kids now since the last we spoke. Right?
Yeah. No, it's tough, man. It's like it can be, but it is what it is in a weird way. You sort of like just do the best you can, FaceTimes, but it definitely changes the way you approach touring. Actually, changes the way you approach your whole life. So, and you have the whole work. There's a lot of things you have to do,
Yeah.
So, you miss home. But like the gigs, and like once you get up on stage and the gigs, how they've been, it does make it worthwhile, Yeah.
I saw that you played Glastonbury, the legendary Glastonbury Festival this summer.
Yeah.
How was that for you?
Yeah. Glastonbury was amazing. So obviously being British, Glastonbury is like a staple. And then it was on the Pyramid stage, which is like, the main stage at the festival. And it's like pretty iconic. Everyone's played there from, Neil Young, Radiohead. Everyone, Jay-Z. So I played on that stage about 5 p.m., I think it was. The weather was beautiful. The sun was setting. And probably the biggest stage in terms of like, notoriety I've ever played.
Did I hear there was like an equipment breakdown during your set?
There was like a keyboard thing. Something happened to my keyboard, but actually it didn't actually break, but I thought it did.
Yeah.
But it actually weirdly sort of like helped the show. Sort of like gave people a sneak peek, unbeknownst to me, of like me, I guess. And it sort of like brought people in. And people talk about the Glastonbury crowd and the audience being a special thing. I definitely felt it at that moment. It was almost like they were, I felt like the support was so strong. You felt like you were being like lifted up in the air,
Yeah.
Like they give you so much encouragement. So it actually like was a nice way, weirdly, to connect with the audience and sort of become friends,
Sure.
Yeah.
I was there years ago, and I still remember, you had to have your wellies on all weekend. Was it a Mudfest again this year?
Luckily this year it wasn't, but I have been there some years where it's a Mudfest, and as you know, it's like pretty hardcore. It's a big site now, and the mud, the further the days go, the deeper the mud gets, and the more sludgy it gets. So like walking feels like, feels like you're walking double the length of everywhere you go.
Yeah.
And you just really hurt your legs.
Yeah.
But luckily it was like beautiful weather for 3 days. Yeah.
So it's been 5 years now since your highly decorated Kiwanuka album, and you are coming back with a new album, which is due on the 15th of November, called Small Changes.
Yeah.
So tell us about the album. How is it different from the Kiwanuka album?
Yeah. Small Changes is like pretty different, in my opinion. And I know no one's heard it yet, but like a couple of singles. But I would say the most immediate differences are probably, I would say describe it as a lot more understated than Kiwanuka. Kiwanuka was like, I feel like Kiwanuka and the record before, Love and Hate, I definitely was in a different space of trying to prove a lot of things as an artist, to peers, musicians I liked, audiences, and how people like view your music or view you as an artist and what they think you can do. So that definitely affects how you make your music, not in like a commercial sense, but more in an artistic sense. So I tried to like flex as many of those muscles, so they were like really broad strokes and big interludes, and the production was super layered. Yeah, I only thought of this looking back as well when we were making Small Changes, but the production became, especially in Kiwanuka, like really, really, really layered with so many ideas and so many sounds, and it was just to create a strong, vivid world for the listener to show my mind really, and how much is going on in there, and show most of myself. And this Small Changes is like almost the opposite. It's sort of like I'm not trying to prove anything with it. I remember having a conversation with one of the producers, Inflo. I was like, said early on in the sessions, I was like, I wonder what an album will sound like when we're like not trying to be cool or anything, or not trying to prove anything. And it sort of came out like this, and more about the voice, more about my voice, or more about the lyrics and the melodies, and less about like flexing your artistic muscles.
Seems like everything has room to breathe a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's a nice sound.
Yeah.
And, speaking of, artists, you used touchstones like Bill Withers and Sade.
Yeah.
I mean, Bill Withers, the king of the understated album.
Yeah. And he's always been a hero of mine. But for someone like Bill Withers, I sort of re-engaged with that. Basically, my early influences, I sort of like remembered me at like 18 and not even knowing what like making an album was, or what even being an artist means, just sort of expressing myself through songs. Sort of went back to that, which was like, for me, the right time. I was ready to sort of do that. It's funny, you look for your own sound, and my sound is like so inspired by so much classic stuff, but I think within that is me looking for my own sound, is strip everything away and find out what it actually is when all the other stuff's off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I hear hints of 70s jazz and prog a little bit. Prog,
always, yeah.
That's kind of a touchstone for you all the time, isn't it?
Yeah. Especially prog with like the Pink Floyd influences are always there. And then jazz has like been, I studied jazz for a bit. Yeah. And I'm a huge I was really a jazz fanatic from like 16, sort of a weird teenager, like between like 15, 14 and like 17. I didn't even know any like, that was like the like indie rock world at the noughties of like the UK. All those bands were coming out. I hardly knew any of them. I just like was listening to like 50s and 60s Blue Note records. Yeah. I was sort of like in my own world. So that there's always going to be a bit of those elements, I think, even without trying. Yeah. Sort of in there without me, whether I like it or not now.
What's it like working with Danger Mouse?
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
Danger Mouse, legendary producer. Both are very phenomenal producers. Probably describing them as producers is probably like not a big enough word, or like doesn't describe them well enough. But like it's nice working with him. It's just working with someone with a lot of experience and like strong opinions and an interesting, unique viewpoint on the world and art. It's good. It's fun. You can just ask any question, and you're going to get like a really interesting answer or something you've never really considered. Yeah. Which is, for me, is fun. And then he's also really, really good. So like, you know that if you're making music, you're gonna have something that you enjoy. Yeah, and this is our third record together, so I'm learning how he works more. He's learning more how I work, and I feel I've learned quite a few things that makes the process even a bit easier, more confident in what I do, rather than, I think, before trying to guess what someone else wants or be everything. You sort of become, you just do what you sort of do, which actually is easier, you know, for everyone in the process. So it's really cool, yeah.
I saw that Peno Paladino plays bass on your record. I remember him. He was the first guy to replace John Entwistle in The Who.
Yeah, in The Who, yeah.
Did you talk about The Who and stuff
I wanted to, but we didn't really get to talk about, I mean, there was so many questions I wanted to ask, but we didn't. He just was talking about the record and like what to do on the bass. Yeah. And like, you know, well, I discovered him on like the Voodoo album, the D'Angelo Voodoo album. Mm-hmm. I used to love that in school.
Super cool record.
Yeah, and that type of bass playing was like sort of new, you know, inspired by like old like 70s bass players, but like he just put a spin on it. Yeah. No one had really heard anything like that. So I wanted to ask about all of that. But he really was like the Peno I imagined, you know. He's on one track in the end, and that's probably like the best bass playing ever. Yeah. Or definitely on the album. Yeah, he's phenomenal.
I also saw, you know, us to the Twin Cities, this means a lot, Jimmy Jam.
Jimmy Jam, yeah.
Tell us about working with Jimmy Jam. What did you do on your record? And I imagine you talked a little bit about Prince. And
oh, yeah, Jimmy Jam is like kind of like the opposite of Peno. Jimmy Jam was around a bit more. Mm-hmm. And Jimmy Jam would like, you could ask him anything and he would be really happy to talk about everything from like Janet Jackson days to Prince days to the whole lot. And similar to like Brian, he just has like a wealth of knowledge. He was just such a nice calming figure in the studio. But he knows Inflo, and we were in LA, and you know he lives in LA, and he came to like hang out with Inflo, and then he just like stayed. Yeah. And then eventually we were like, hey, do you want to play on? We need like Hammond on some stuff, and he's like, yeah, I'll play. And he's actually on like 3/4 of the album. All the Hammond you hear, other than maybe one song, is Jimmy Jam. You know, he's on actually a lot of the record now. In the end,
wow, that's so awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool, man.
Fun to work with him.
Amazing, yeah. It was like working with. You wouldn't have thought like he'd done all what he'd done in music. He was so humble, so it was like it was his first gig in a weird way. He never really like imposed his legendary status on anyone unless you sort of prized it out of him. So it was pretty cool. Really, really cool guy. Yeah.
I was doing some reading about you, and I read that you are kind of terrified of AI.
Oh, yeah.
Artificial intelligence.
Definitely.
Tell us your thoughts on that.
Well, it's AI. I mean, I was even terrified of like, I remember being in like school and being terrified of Facebook when that came. Yeah. I just don't get, I'm just not really used to things that aren't like with a human around it. And then, AI is just kind of like intimidating. It's like living with the robots. It's just sort of wild to me when like they could turn against us. But, and also music really, music would be sad to hear music, or actually hear anything made through AI. And I know there'll probably be ways to, I think what would be cool with AI is like someone really smart to manipulate AI to do something creative with it. That's cool, but like AI just for the sake of like ease is pretty terrifying.
What if there was like, you press the Michael Kiwanuka setting?
I'd hate that. I mean, like, no one would need to come. I would never need to make an album. Someone, you could just press a button and, so I just feel like it'd be odd. I don't understand how it would work with like intellectual property. Right. Whose is it when it's not yours? It's AI, How does that happen? And as much as we can like make a mess of things, humans are pretty cool. I just don't think we need. Yeah. I just don't think there's any point on the planet if there's no humans on it.
I remember when it was first around a few years ago, everybody was posting the AI Johnny Cash, and it didn't really sound all that much like Johnny Cash.
There was one Oasis one that was like really good. There was a whole Oasis. Maybe that's why they got back together, but like there was an AI album a whole album of like Oasis sounding tunes.
Yeah.
And it was scary because everyone loved it. So they were like, well, we don't really need Oasis. We've got what we wanted. It sounds like What's the Story, Morning Glory. So you take out the like artistic expression, you take out the sort of like wrestle between the artist and audience, which I think is cool when, you know, the questions are asked of like, man, I like the second album, I didn't like the fifth, and then someone else likes the fifth, and they didn't like the second, and you know, and then like 10 years later, you like the fifth album. You just basically get these carbon copies, and everyone's like, it's a great album, it sounds great, it's what I wanted. I don't need to see Oasis. It scratches that itch, and so to me, I was like, oh no, that's like the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why they got back together, so the AI couldn't take their...
So how do you feel about Oasis getting back together and all you're from the UK, so how did it feel over there with that's all anybody was talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun to talk about. I mean, I was really like a Blur fan, I'll be honest. So like,
can you like, some people say you can't like both, but is that true or not?
You can.
Is it like the Stones and the Beatles or what?
A little bit.
Yeah.
You sort of like, it sort of, for me, like, it kind of describes who you are a little bit.
Yeah.
Blur is like maybe a bit more poncy in a way, a bit more like art school, definitely more art school, and like Oasis is like brute like force, like for the people.
Yeah.
But really, really amazing songwriting. And like, yeah, you couldn't escape it. And it was cool for a bit, you know, nostalgia and stuff. But the thing I found interesting was the lack of bands, you know? So
yeah,
I was, you know, I don't know if a band can really do that anymore, a new band. And it just shows, I think it's like a example of how music consumption has changed and how we as people consume music, you know, and how we can create, you know, our own niches and worlds on our phones and in our laptops and amongst our friends, where in the Oasis times and before, you know, there was really like one avenue for things, so someone could become huge.
Yeah.
You know, with 2 albums. You know, to do that now doesn't really happen. It does with solo acts sometimes, but again, it's like also a lot with the personality. So it made me remember like, oh wow, like I wonder if a band today could do that, you know? I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but yeah, it was cool. I mean, I haven't bought a ticket, but
yeah,
you know, it's definitely English.
You were probably
people.
in queue for a whole day and just gave up.
Yeah, you know, I didn't even sign up, but yeah, there's a lot of people were. But yeah, you know, it will be a fun, interesting, monumental, funny moment to see those two together.
Yeah.
Whether they don't argue again and they can survive, you know, it'll be interesting to see. It's like tabloids. It's like a soap. So,
sure.
Yeah.
Sure. A couple of fun questions to wrap it up. When you're doing your sound check at, you know, before a show, what's one of your favorite songs to just pull out and play?
Oh, cool question. So I always do one that like is easy, so that like I can get used to the stage, and then I always do one where like there's less musicians playing, so I can just check that, you know, I can still sing that day. So probably, you know, we always usually do You Ain't the Problem because it's like everyone's playing and it's like it's a comfortable song. There's actually a song on the new album called Low Down Part 1. That's been quite fun to play.
That's a good one.
It's got a similar thing. We've been enjoying playing that. But there's a song I really love to play if we're feeling good. Is like a song off the Kiwanuka called Hard to Say Goodbye. And that has a really nice intro. And it sounds really cool. So if there's a really nice sounding room, a theatre sort of place, and we don't need to do anything else, I'll usually play that just to feel the room and hear the sound, you know?
Sure.
Yeah.
And what was the last album that wasn't you that you listened to start to finish?
Oh, wow. Oh, that's a good question. Dude.
Or one of the last albums you listened to start to finish?
Whoa. Good question. It was probably... Oh, man, it was... I bought a record the other day in like a town called Romsey near where I live. Where it's just old people live there. But and it was in a secondhand shop.
Yeah.
And it was Bobby Gentry and Glenn Campbell duo album with like the songs Sunday Mornings on there and Let It Be Me, the cover of Let It Be Me.
Oh, lovely.
I can't remember what the album's called because I've listened to it once, but I just put the record on packing for this tour.
Bobby Gentry was amazing.
Yeah, Bobby Gentry and Glenn Campbell duo album. It's like Capitol Records.
Sure.
Can't remember the name of it, but I bought it because of Bobby Gentry in the cover.
Sure.
And I put that record on whilst packing for the US tour.
Ode to Billy Joe.
Yeah. That's not on there, but
Yeah.
that's what I know of her. She sounds amazing on that record. There's a song on there called Sunday Morning. It's Sunday morning. So right now as we talk. So, and it's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Michael Kiwanuka, so nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too.
Congratulations. I can't wait to hear the rest of the new album. What I've heard, I caught 3 songs, and I think they're all 3 of them are fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I look forward to hearing more from the record, and we'll catch you next time through.
Yes.
Always good to chat with you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
The Current is public media made possible thanks to member support.